Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we have an interesting show today because we are going to be talking about steps for dealing with trauma. And I know a lot of people are going to be very interested in that. My new book, Open to Love, The Secrets of Senior Dating, written with myself and my fiance, Dr. Frank Powers. It's a book especially that we've written for you who've had a loss of a partner and are looking to find love again like we were. It's got good tips and tools on how to go forward to look for a new relationship. So we hope that you will go on Amazon today and purchase it. 100% of the proceeds for the book go to the Open to Hope Foundation to help people find hope after loss. Well, Heidi, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Sure, Mom. We are going to be talking today with Tiffani Dilworth, and she is a member of the Association for Death Educators and Counselors. And as you know, we partner with them. They are also known as ADAC. So we are going to be talking with her about steps to dealing with trauma. And Tiffani is a licensed clinical professional counselor. She received her master's degree at Oklahoma State University, and she is the author of 11 Tools to Help Manage the Aftermath of Trauma and Types of Grief. Welcome to our podcast, Tiffani.
Thank you. It is wonderful to be here with you. And it's just a great opportunity to see and hear all the amazing things you guys are doing at Open to Hope. And so thank you so much again for this opportunity to be here with you guys.
Well, I love that you're here. And I've got to say, I forgot to say that you've also lost both of your grandparents who you were very close to. And my father died in 2020, and it was really hard for all of his grandchildren, including my two children. I think that grandparent loss is often a minimized, unacknowledged loss because people feel like, well, they lived a long life, but that doesn't mean we don't miss them. You know, my heart goes out to you with that loss.
Thank you. And that's very true. Unfortunately, sometimes the grandchildren are kind of overlooked, and it's mainly focused on the children. But I know for my grandparents, they held a very special place in my heart. And when my granddad died, I was actually in college at the time. And when he died, it took me to a very dark place, to a place where I longed to be with him. And it took me a while to work through that hurt and that heartache and pain as well.
How did you work through that?
Yeah, there were a lot of coping skills I had to embrace. The main one was this concept called radical acceptance. So radical acceptance, it's when we are able to sit in a moment and acknowledge the past for what it was. Acknowledge that I can't go back in the past and I can't change anything. As much as I'd like to go back and talk to that person again or say or do something differently, the reality is that we can't go in the past. So it's about sitting in that moment and acknowledging whatever feelings that might pop up for us, whether it's hurt or sadness or disappointment. And then saying, I see it for what it was. And so now looking forward to how do I want to live my life, even though my granddad's not here, even though I can't hug him anymore, I can't talk to him anymore. How do I want my life to look? How do I want his legacy to look as well?
I love that.
You talked about another traumatic experience you wanted to mention, and because you want people to know about how to deal with the trauma, about an assault you had in high school.
Yes, many times when an individual experiences sexual assault or any type of trauma, there's a lot of losses that happen, not only physical losses, but abstract losses as well, such as loss of friendships, loss of hope, loss of identity for many people. I know for myself, there's a loss of stability in my life. I went from being this open, happy, bubbly person to now being unsure about the world, how to interact with the world. And there's a lot of anxiety that popped up as a result of that. I remember there were times I would walk into the store and have a panic attack right in the middle of the store. And so I had to learn how to manage my emotions. A lot of emotional regulation had to happen to work through those challenging moments. I remember there were times where I would leave the store and I have to sit in my car for 10, 15 minutes. Do a lot of deep breathing exercises, a lot of grounding techniques. And one of those techniques I'm going to share with you guys here in just a moment. But I did a lot of grounding techniques. And then I did some radical acceptance, accepting that I can't go back in the past and accept that this is where I'm at right now. And that's what a lot of people might miss out on grief is that sometimes we wish, man, I wish I could go back to how I used to be. I used to talk to people. I used to engage in daily life. I used to do all these fun things, but now I just want to isolate. I don't want to
Y-
go out anymore. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about this, Tiffani, is that while sexual assault and deaths are different,
Mhm.
some of the ways that we're responding when you talk about this are the same. You know, the world is no longer a safe or predictable place when we've been physically assaulted or emotionally assaulted or psychologically assaulted, right? I mean, so a lot of what you're talking about also happens after a death, which I find interesting. Being
Yes.
anxious, being, panicking, not trusting the world anymore, and needing these techniques to cope, which I love that you've written books on 11 tools to help manage the aftermath of trauma. We often get caught in the trauma narrative,
Mhm.
and it keeps going over and over in our heads. And I'm wondering, I have a lot of clients that have had very traumatic losses, deaths, and I'm wondering what kind of advice would you give to them?
Yeah. Great question. And you're right, there are a lot of overlaps when it comes to
There
trauma
are.
and grief.
Hmm.
The thing is about being in the present moment, the here and the now. And there's actually a grounding technique I like to do with you guys to kind of help us come to the
Sure.
present moment. Because there's a lot of intrusive thoughts, intrusive memories that will pop up after a loss and trauma. So just for a moment in your space, I want you to look around your space and try to count all the green things that you see. Count all the green things that you see.
Mhm.
Now
Mhm.
look around your space and try to count all the blue things that you see. Count all the blue things that you see. Now, just for a moment, I want you to just take a step back. While you're looking around your space, were you able to stay focused, or do you get distracted and had a lot of intrusive thoughts or memories pop up? For most people, they're able to stay focused in
Okay.
that present moment. And so
Which,
what happens after a trauma, after a loss, have a lot of intrusive thoughts and memories, and we just need to give our brain a break for a moment. So this is a simple grounding techniques, take maybe 15 seconds to do. So look around your space for different colors. Another variation are shapes. So look around for all the circles, the triangles, the octagons. Grounding techniques can go a long way when it comes to just giving our brain a break and then figuring out what do I do next.
I like that. Give your brain a break because you gave me a task.
mm-hmm.
So I, had to count. I was not only looking at color, but I was also counting. So I'm finding out 5 or 6 blue things and yeah, and
Me
score.
too. I agree with you, Mom. And I was excited because the donut that I'm holding has blue and green on it.
Nice.
But it does, it keeps you so focused. You can't think of anything else, like you said, Mom, because you're counting and you're looking at colors and you can't think about the trauma or anything else at that moment.
I
Yeah.
can think of that as being a really quick way when you have to pull yourself together,
Mhm.
like you're
Hmm.
at work or something, and you've got to
Mhm.
put yourself together really quickly. Used to talk about, get up and go to the bathroom and wash your hands and put some cold water on your face. But if you're stuck in that seat or maybe at a traffic light where you're feeling panicky,
That's what I'm wondering. If you're in a traffic light, or I live in New York City, we're in subways all of a sudden and we have a panic attack. Like you said, you could be in a store. Or what can people do if they're in a place where, like the car or whatever, and they have a panic attack or they feel overwhelmed with anxiety?
Yeah. Actually, that happened to me when my grandmother had died. Um, I
Mm.
had gotten the news and I was on my way home from work, and I realized that I'm never going to hear her voice again. And I just started crying. So I had to pull over to the side of the road for safety reasons, of course. And
Yeah.
I did a lot of deep breathing. Deep breathing helped me a lot throughout that loss
Mhm.
because, again, all those intrusive thoughts, intrusive memories come pouring in. Also, most relaxations can be helpful as well. There's a lot of studies and research that shows that we hold our emotions in our body many times without even realizing it. With the muscle relaxation technique, we're able to relax and let go of a lot of those emotions. So if it's okay with you, I would like us to actually do one together, a very brief one.
Ready?
Sure.
All right. So if you're able to and you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable, perfectly fine. Keep them open. And so let's kind of try to relax our body as much as possible. So we're going to start with our toes. I want you to squinch your toes up into a ball as tight as you can without hurting yourself. And then relax. Again, take your toes and squinch them into a ball as tight as you can. And then relax. Now we take your knees and squeeze your knees together as tight as you can without hurting yourself. And then relax. Again, take your knees and squeeze them together as tight as you can. And then relax. Now I want you to imagine you have a pair of lemons in your hands. I want you to squeeze those lemons as tight as you can without hurting yourself. And then drop them. Now take those same lemons and try to squeeze all the juice out and then let them go. Now you take your shoulders and try to make your shoulders touch your ears. And then relax. Again, take your shoulders and try to make them touch your ears. And then relax. Now try to relax your jawline. Relax your eyes. And relax the middle of your forehead. If there's any area on your body that might feel tense or uncomfortable, go ahead and adjust yourself so you feel nice and relaxed. So now we're going to end with a few deep breaths. Go ahead and breathe in deep through your nose. Blow out slowly through your mouth. Again, let's breathe in deep through our nose. Blow out slowly through your mouth and try to empty all the air out. And one last time, breathe in deep through your nose. Hold it for a moment. And then blow out slowly through your mouth. Okay, if your eyes were closed, go ahead and open them up. And so that probably took maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes at the most. And for a lot of people, it helps us to be able to release those emotions that might be trapped in our body without us even realizing it. And that happens quite often after a loss. We have a lot of hurt and sadness and aching in our body without even realizing it.
Yeah, I feel different. I feel great. Do you, Mom?
Yes, it's very relaxing. So
It is.
that's part of your 11 tools to manage the aftermath of trauma.
Mhm. Yes, yes. And of course, there are many more tools in the book, but those are the main ones that have helped not only myself, but a lot of my clients as well to
Mhm,
come to this grounding place so we're able to engage in daily functioning, take care of different responsibilities that we might have. Yeah.
mhm. Now, I wanted to ask you, how about time as a factor with trauma? Does it take time? Do you have any thoughts about time and trauma?
Yes. And so trauma impacts everyone differently. Different symptoms, the intensity of the symptoms vary from person to person. I wish there was this concrete answer of after 7 months, you're done with trauma. There's no more symptoms. But that's just not reality. Reality is that it impacts all of us differently. And so really it hones in on our coping skills. How often are we using them? Are we consistently using them? Are we adjusting them? I remember there are times where I worked with some clients and myself. There is a coping skill that worked, and then 6 months later, that coping skill didn't work anymore. So I had to find a
Mm,
new coping skill. So it's always adjusting ourselves as we're growing in our healing process as well.
That's
For
a really
some,
good point, Tiffany. Just because a coping skills worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to continue to work in the same way.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so when it comes to, again, that concept of time, it really does vary from person to person. I know there's some times where I've met people who has experienced a major loss and they have very mild symptoms. Only around the
mm,
holidays or when the anniversary of the person died, that acute grief might come back. And then
mhm,
a couple of weeks after the holidays or after that person's anniversary, they go back to daily functioning and they
mhm.
have very mild to no symptoms at all of a loss. So it really depends on the person and how we're using our coping skills as well.
I love it. Well, where can people get your book? I'm excited to get that book and look at the other coping skills because you've got 11 tools to help manage.
Yes, yes. And so it is available on Amazon and also Barnes and Noble. You can get them from those two places.
And you also have the book called Types of Grief, right?
Yes, and so that's where we discuss many different types of grief, such
Hmm.
as disenfranchised grief, accumulative grief as well. And many times people don't realize that there are a lot of different types, and that's where we talk about quite a few of those.
Awesome. And how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm available on most social media platforms. It's my name, Tiffani Dilworth. I'm available on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
And are you doing private practice online or in person or?
Yes, I am doing it online at the time. Uh, with just the pandemic, I've transitioned over to online, full-time
Mhm.
online. And so people are more than welcome to reach out to me if that is a service that they're looking for.
All right.
And if you want to learn more about Tiffani, just Google her name and videos. And I saw you in Washington, D.C. speaking about your trauma. It was really powerful, about the sexual assaults you've been through in your life. Um, and you've got a lot of videos out there. You've got
Mhm.
podcasts and others, all sorts of things about grief and loss if people want to learn more. So thank you so much, Tiffani, for everything you're doing.
Thank you for having me on the show. I really enjoyed speaking with you guys today.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on the show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.